One mistake that I made was using my address, my student apartment address, as my address on USCIS's website. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Emiola, but you can call me the Global MC. On this channel, we talk about the international student experience. I also talk about my experience as an international journalist in the United States. And I hope to someday in the future begin to talk about all the money moves that I'm making. So stick around if any of those interests you. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about the difference between CPT, Curricular Practical Training, and OPT, Optional Practical Training. This applies to you if you're an F1 student in the United States. So stick around if you want to hear all of the differences and how you can really just make sure that you're adequately maintaining your status as a student in the United States. All right, so I'm going to start with the similarities between OPT and CPT. And I think the only one is that both of them have to be employment that's related to your course of study. So you cannot, for example, myself, be studying journalism and then receive OPT or CPT for an accounting job or a legal job or a video design. You can do videos, but engineering, you cannot do that. You have to be employed in the course of study that you came to the United States for. So that's something you want to bear in mind and follow. Now to the differences. So the first thing you want to know about CPT is that it must be a part of your coursework. So thinking internship. If you're not doing it as part of your coursework, if you're not receiving credit for it, then you probably will not qualify to get authorization for CPT, which means Curricular Practical Training. So it's part of your curriculum. Number two is that it must be authorized by your school. So not just that you went and got a job that's in line with the course that you're studying, but you also have to speak with the people at ISSS, the International Student Services Office, and speak with your designated school official, your DSO, and make sure that you get that authorization to proceed to do that CPT, that Curricular Practical Training. Number three is that you can only get CPT if you already have an offer from an employer. So for instance, that can look like having an internship offer, and so now you can apply for your CPT. And because the process is pretty much within the school system, you don't have to wait for a long time to get back or to hear back on whether or not your CPT has been approved. But once you can show that you have an employment offer for your internship or whatever program you're applying to, that's part of what you have to show your DSO, and then they will go ahead and approve your CPT application. Another thing you want to note is that if you somehow get fired from your internship, you cannot transfer your CPT to another employer. So CPT is for a specific employer and also for a specific period of time. So summer, fall, spring internships, those kind of things. And one thing that I really like about CPT is that you can do more than one at the same time. So you can get an internship, I'm a journalist, with a TV station. You can get another one with a newspaper. You can get another one on radio. As long as you're able to manage your time, they're like, okay, do you do you, that's all right. So that's one of the perks of being on CPT during the school year. And then one thing you also want to be very careful about is making sure that your CPT is ending before your program end date, because you can only use CPT while you are a student. So that means while your I-20s, the program end date on your I-20 is still valid. If that has passed and you're still working on your CPT, you need to, find a way to quickly get out of that situation and speak to your DSO about that situation as well. You can only be on CPT as long as you remain a student. If you've graduated, if your program has ended, if the end date on your I-20 has passed, you need to cut it short. And then finally on CPT, you want to know that part-time is the way to go for CPT. If you're working more than 20 hours in a week, that is considered full-time employment. So you want to make sure that you're working under 20 hours every week to make sure that you are well within the parameters to receive OPT, after you graduate. Because if you work for 1 year on CPT and it's full time, then you are automatically disqualified from applying for OPT. So you want to keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the characteristics of OPT, which is optional practical training. And as the word means, optional, meaning it's something you can do and it's something you do not have to do if you do not want to. Many international students choose to take their OPT because that's the time when they're really, getting that full-time experience after school, and they're able to establish connections and relationships with employers and apply to other places as well. So I'm going to be talking about some of the characteristics of OPT and why you should definitely take it, even though it's optional. Now, the first thing you want to know is that OPT can happen while you are in school, but it makes no sense for you to take it because you have CPT. So definitely use your CPT while you're in school and save your OPT for when you graduate. Another good thing about OPT is that you can apply without having an offer on hand. So that means you don't have to get an internship offer or a full-time offer before you can reach out to your DSO to say, oh, that you would like to apply for OPT, the optional practical training. And of course, one thing to note is that you must apply for your OPT before your program end date. What did I say? You must apply for your OPT before your program ends. Once your program ends, you can no longer apply for OPT. So you want to make sure that you are doing the right things. ISS, that's your International Student Services Office, would already be sending you emails about applying for OPT once you're about 2 months out of to the point where you're going to graduate. So you want to keep an eye out for those emails and make sure that you're applying when you need to be applying, so you don't want to hear what stories that touch. So one thing to note is that the application process is pretty simple, but the waiting, because this is outside of your school's purview now, you're going to be applying with USCIS, and that takes a long time. For me, my application for OPT didn't get approved until like 3 months after the date that I sent my application. So that's part of the things that you want to begin to think about. If you have opportunities already lined up, you want to apply for your OPT early enough that it makes you able to start work when you need to start work. If you do not have any opportunities lined up, you want to delay applying for your OPT until the very last second, so that you have time to actually begin searching for your opportunity, for your work, for your job, or for whatever internship that you can find. And then when your start date comes, you're able to start on time. Those are some of the things you want to keep an eye out for, keep an ear out for, when you should be applying, the different times. If you have something already lined up, absolutely go for it. If you don't, take a minute and just try to make use of the 3 months that it will take for them to actually get back to you, and then do that. One annoying thing is that you want to make sure that your address on your application for OPT is going to be an address that you're actually going to have access to. One mistake that I made was using my address, my student apartment address, as my address on USCIS's website. That caused problems, and so I had to pay. It was a mess. I will talk about that some other time, not today. I do not want to rehash that today, but make sure that the address that you're using on your OPT application, you're going to have access to that mailbox so that they can easily send your EAD card, which is what I'm going to talk about next. So if you've applied for OPT, you've gotten a job, you cannot start work until your EAD card arrives. And EAD means Employment Authorization Document. You cannot start work until your EAD card arrives, number one. And then number two, you cannot start work until the start date that is listed on your EAD card. So if your EAD card arrives on January 6th and your start date on your EAD card is January 16th, but the start date on your offer letter is January 2, You cannot start work until January 16. That's something you want to keep in mind because records are going to be plain for all to see at the end of the day. So let's, make hay while the sun is shining. And of course, you can only be employed by one employer on OPT. So unlike CPT, when you can have various opportunities that you're in, with OPT, you can only be employed with one employer. You cannot work concurrently with other employers. You only work for one employer at a time. If you get fired from one, as long as you get another job within 60 days of your termination, then you're good. But if you're not able to get another job within 60 days of termination, then you want to begin to pack your bags or speak to a lawyer for a change of visa status. Those are all options that you want to look into, and maybe I'll talk about those in another video. And so if you come to the US as an undergrad and you get OPT 12 months, there's also something called STEM OPT, and it allows you to extend your original OPT period, which is a year, 12 months, for another 24 months, so 2 years. So altogether, studying a science technology major, a STEM major, is beneficial if you're an international student. But if you have coconut head like me and you want to study journalism or arts or English in the United States, you want to really make sure that you have a good strategy for getting a job after your program finishes and getting a job with a company that's going to sponsor you for an H-1B visa, which is basically a working visa. I will talk about that in another video. So those are all my tips and tricks for H1, that's not H1B rather. Those are all my thoughts on CPT and OPT, the characteristics of OPT, the characteristics of CPT, and which one you should use when. These are both vehicles that you can use per time, and you just need to think about the benefits, the pros and cons of both, and figure out which one works best for you. Obviously, if you're still a student, CPT is your best option. If you've graduated, you have no other option but OPT. So you want to begin to think about these things. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have anything that I missed, or if you think that I should talk about something that's related to the international student experience, drop a comment below, like, share, all the great YouTube things, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.